and they've got a bad and a good news. One of the things is that regional spots, if you look at what happened to the rainfall in the planet, this is the well-known Sahelian drought. Okay, as you know, sub-Saharan Africa was decimated by this drought in the 70s. But I'm more focusing on this decrease in the monsoon rainfall. And here also north-south shift. And the reason to think about the dimming and the rainfall is the water that falls on us was evaporated in the ocean, right? What's the source for that? Sunlight. Sunlight goes to the ocean, evaporates the moisture, and then the winds take it and they fall on our head. So the dumbest thing we can do is cut the sunlight. So when you cut the sunlight, you got to reduce the evaporation. And this was known. I mean, many models have shown this. But what we showed here is that this particular thing was caused by the dimming by the brown clouds, because the greenhouse warming by itself should make the rainfall more intense in the tropics. And there's another group, NASA group, showed this, they need the brown clouds. And there's an Australian group who suggested the Sahelian drought was caused by the dimming of the North Atlantic. But these are all ongoing research. And again, there was many resistance when we said there is a decrease in rainfall, and IPCC again confirmed our findings, said that in fact the Gangetic Plains is getting drier. So I've teamed up with some agriculture economists and said, what is the impact on rice harvest? Okay, the Offhammer is at Berkeley and Jeff Vincent is at Duke. And what you see in India, there's a wet season harvest. Because of the green revolution, the rice production increased dramatically. That's what sustained the huge population increase. And India is, self-sufficient. But that's what's worrying the Indian government to sick is that it's leveled off. They're putting fertilizer, they're trying to do everything. It's leveled off. And our paper suggests it's because of the decrease in rainfall. You have less rain. And because much of them depend on the, not irrigation, rainfall. So going on to remember, I said there is this heating I have to explain. And that required a peculiar platform that's not available. So we worked for 5 years to develop this unmanned aircraft. And I had a team of scientists and engineers, miniaturized instruments. Okay? There are over 26 instruments squeezed into a half shoebox size in this aircraft. And they'll be launched, and we put a guided so that we can precisely know where it's going. And so all of that would be done in the ground by my students, just flying aircraft. And what we found was again disturbing. We had one aircraft flying above the cloud to see how much sunlight was coming in, and one to see how much was coming through. So we were able to deduce the heating. It was as large as what I showed in the other map. But the thing there was that was not the disturbing finding. My aircraft was here, and fortunately on the same year we flew, NASA flew a fantastic mission with a laser instrument, and that showed, that's Himalayas, surrounded by these brown clouds, both sides, from the Chinese side and the Indian side, from pollution, okay? And you are pumping heating there, and the hot air goes up the mountains, and that's what we found in our model. 50% of the reason these glaciers are retreating is from the heating. And we have a station, the highest station in the world. It's part of our program, but maintained by Italians, on the base cap of Mount Everest. You know how much black carbon I'm finding? We are finding almost about 500 to 1,000 nanograms. It's supposed to be the most pristine part of the planet. If I stick the same instrument here in Los Angeles, I would find somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000. It's almost like we are living in an urban area right in Mount Everest. So going to that, the reason the Himalayan glaciers is a big issue is that they provide the headwaters for all the major rivers, the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra, the Mekong, and the Yangtze and Elo River. It's in fact the water fountain of Asia. Over 2.5 billion depend on that. And when we started talking to some of the policymakers and scientists, the comment was, our rivers are flowing abundantly. Of course, when the glaciers are melting, the river flow will increase. But when it has gone half gone, that's when you see the drying. Okay? But now I'm happy to say the Indian government has recognized this as the major issue for them in terms of climate change. just next month, all of the chief ministers of all the mountain states are meeting to talk about it. I was pleased to say, they said, we need to understand the effect of black carbon and carbon dioxide. So they recognize there is an issue here. So this is sort of the summary. I'm not going to talk too much about this. I'm sure some of this would be discussed with Professor Richard Alley. So we, that's Gangotri, feeding the Ganges, and it has been retreating quite alarmingly. And we are working with some of the Indian groups to see if we can send our UAVs to measure the black carbon. I first have to convince them that I'm not spying on India or Pakistan using this UAV. Okay? We are also sending up, just not getting UAVs to the Arctic to find out, because both here and here, now scientists are saying about half the reason they're all retreating is because of black carbon. When the soot deposits in snow, it makes the snow dirty, and then the snow starts absorbing more sunlight. In fact, that's the technique they use to clear snow for the army. Okay? And so now I'm going to go into solutions. Okay? Obviously, we have to go after the villain. The villain is carbon dioxide emissions. And look at how, in spite of everything we are talking about, CO2 emissions is taking off astronomically. Okay? The growth rate is about a factor of 4 larger starting from 2000 compared to here. And of course, that's my colleague, famous Dave Keeling, previous laureate, his curve, CO2 is increasing. And now let's talk about the new administration, President Obama, as well as the Copenhagen discussions. They are talking about cutting down the CO2 emission by 50%. If you do that, that'll be a miraculous achievement. But my estimates show that's not going to do much. Right now, we are putting about 8.5 billion tons of carbon as carbon dioxide. If we don't do anything, we would have put 110 gigatons. If we cut the emission by 50%, we would still be putting 80 billion tons. That's a lot of billion tons to put into the air. Okay? So meaning the warming is going to increase, but not as fast. Still, it's going to increase. I'm saying we already pushed the planet to 2.5. We are just going to the right of my curve, not to the left. So I want to go to the left of my curve. Okay?